Okay, so have you ever been friends with someone
Uh-huh.
and then like things kind of shifted
Yeah.
and like maybe one of you started having feelings and then you wondered like, can this
Oh.
friendship actually survive?
Can we even be friends anymore?
So we're going to like do a deep dive into this whole question of can you stay friends
Right.
after someone catches feelings?
It's like the ultimate test for a friendship,
It really is.
in a way.
And we have got some interesting research and some real life stories to help us
Okay.
unpack this whole thing.
I think a lot of people have been in this situation, so
Yeah, for sure.
it should be an interesting conversation.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
me too.
So where do we start?
Well, first, like, I think it's helpful to kind of like define what we actually mean
Okay.
by platonic friendship
Yeah, that's a good point.
because, we're throwing that word around.
Yeah.
So like when we say platonic friendship, are we talking about like, hanging out, watching movies? Like,
Right. So just genuine connection.
yeah, exactly.
Shared interests.
Shared interests, but like,
But no romantic or sexual intention.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like totally like
Purely platonic.
purely platonic.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things get tricky because like,
It's so easy to cross that line.
to blur the lines, right?
Yeah.
And, you gave me some research that said like having these romantic feelings pop up in friendships.
Yeah, it happens more often
Way more common.
than we think, right?
There was this study
Yeah.
in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships,
Okay.
and it found that like
Yeah.
over 60% of people said they'd had romantic feelings for a friend
See, I knew it.
at some point.
I knew it was more common than we think.
So it's not just like a few people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
So really, like,
Big
before
comment?
we even get into the can you stay friends, we
Right.
have to acknowledge that it's
What?
like, it's
Yeah.
happening.
It's happened a lot.
A lot.
So, okay,
Yes.
let's like dive into the arguments.
Okay.
Like what are the reasons why people say like, yeah, you can totally stay friends after this happens?
So on the pro-friendship side,
Yep.
one of the things that like a relationship expert you gave me was saying was that
Yeah.
if you're already friends with someone and then you both decide to like
Right.
try a romantic relationship,
Mhm.
it can actually be a really good foundation
Because you know each other
because you know each other
so well already.
so well.
You know how they communicate with their
Yeah, you've been through stuff together already.
buddies or like,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. You've seen their good side, their bad side, their
Yeah.
weird side.
yeah.
And this one psychologist, Dr. Levine,
Okay.
she was saying that couples who are friends first, they often say they have like more trust and
Yeah.
intimacy in their relationship.
It makes sense. And also we have to think about like just the emotional support of
Yeah.
friends.
Friends are there for you no matter what.
Like if you're going through a breakup
Yeah, especially during
and you lose that
I
friend,
know,
it's like
There's-
losing a lifeline.
Exactly. It's like, who do you turn to if you don't have your friends?
Totally.
So there are definitely some good reasons to try to stay friends.
Yeah.
But
there's a but.
there's always a but.
There's always a but.
So what about the arguments against,
Yeah, let's get into the messy stuff.
right? Like what happens when it doesn't work out so well?
Yeah.
One of the things that this couple's therapist,
Okay.
Dr. Ramirez,
Okay.
she said was that like one of the biggest problems is when you have those feelings
Yeah.
and they kind of linger
They linger.
and it creates all this tension and jealousy and
Oh, yeah.
insecurity.
Like if you're the one who still has feelings
Right. And the other person is like moving on.
and they're like dating other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's like salt in the wound.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
I know that feeling.
It's not fun.
It's not fun.
It's not fun at all.
And Dr. Ramirez was saying, like,
Yeah.
you really have to ask yourself in that situation, like,
can you be happy for your friend?
can you actually move on?
Yeah. And can you move on in a healthy way?
Yeah.
If you're always thinking about what if?
Yeah, like, what if we had tried
What if
that?
we'd gotten together?
What if things had been different?
Right.
It's like you're constantly, like, reopening the wound.
Exactly. It's like picking at a scab.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to let it heal.
You got to let it heal.
And then, you mentioned the whole friend zone thing earlier.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole other layer.
It is, because, like, it has such a negative
It does.
connotation.
Like nobody wants to be in the friend zone.
Nobody wants to be there.
But sometimes it's just the reality of
Yeah.
the situation.
And, like, I think what makes it so tricky in these situations
Is that like sometimes one person feels like they have to stay friends
out of guilt.
out of guilt.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to hurt the other person,
Right.
but then they're not being honest about their feelings.
Yeah, and it creates this imbalance.
It's like you can't really be yourself.
Right. No.
Yeah.
You're always worried about saying the wrong thing
Yeah.
or doing the wrong thing.
It's almost like you're walking on eggshells.
You're walking on eggshells,
Because
exactly.
you don't want to, like,
Yeah.
reignite those feelings.
Right. You don't want to give them false hope.
Yeah, exactly.
So communication is really important.
Oh, super important.
But it's also really hard
Yeah.
to do well.
So we've talked about, like, the theory and the expert opinions.
Right.
But you also gave me some
I did.
stories from people who have actually been through this.
Real life stories.
Yeah, like, what did you notice about those stories?
Well, it was interesting because
Yeah.
some of the people, they've actually managed to stay friends. Like, they set boundaries, they talked about it openly and honestly. And over time, like, those romantic feelings, they just kind of faded away.
So it is possible.
And they were left with this strong friendship.
That's good to hear.
It is possible. But then there were other people who were just like, it's too painful. Like, they couldn't get past those feelings.
And sometimes it was the unrequited feelings.
Right.
And sometimes it was just the fear of, like, messing up the friendship.
Like, if they actually talked about it, it would ruin everything.
So it sounds like there's not, like,
There's no easy answer.
magic answer.
Right.
Like, everyone's situation is.
Every situation is different. Different people, different dynamics.
So, like, what do you think is the most important thing for someone who's listening to this and they're in this situation?
I think the most important thing is to really be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
About your feelings.
About your feelings.
Like, what do you really want?
Yeah.
And what do you need?
And, like, can you handle being friends?
Yeah.
While you still have those feelings?
Or do you need some space?
Yeah.
To heal?
Like, maybe taking a break from the friendship would actually be the healthiest thing.
Exactly.
Wow, this has been a really insightful,
it's complex.
deep dive.
It's complicated, but it's real.
And I think one last thing to think about is that even if you can't stay friends, it's still a learning experience.
Like, it teaches you about yourself.
About yourself and what you want.
And what you want in your relationships.
And sometimes those lessons are just as important as the friendship itself.
Yeah, that's a really good point to end on.
Yeah, food for thought.
Definitely food for thought.